Good morning, community. How are you? Jenenne Macklin here, transformational speaker, wealth guide, and catalyst. And how are you? Doing my best to get on here as close to 9 o'clock as possible. Good morning to the West Coast. It's a little chilly on our side. And good afternoon to the East Coast. It's chilly on your side too. Shoot. So I just want to hop on right quick. It's Monday Mindset. I'm going to be more intentional about wearing my mask. And when I'm not wearing it, I stay my butt at home. But 3 steps for dealing with change. Well, how are you? Let me know where you are. #replay. Let me know what state you're in and how you're doing. Let me see your Christmas trees if you're getting a Christmas tree. Well, we've been here before. We have been here before. Before, when it first happened, we were surprised. Now we know what lockdown looks like. We know what it means, and we know how to do it. So now it's just simply a matter of us doing it. But one of the things that seems to continuously impact us is the word change. It's changing. Everything's changing. Circumstances, experiences are changing. And most of us are not comfortable with change. Most of us have gotten ourselves so entrenched in getting to a place, getting to a certain destination in our lives. And once we get there, we're going to stay there and trust that, okay, I got everything in place. Now, everything should stay like this. And as soon as we get it in place, what happens? It changes. So, what are some of the ways that we can be more at peace with change? So, one of the first things is to accept that it's a given in life. We can stop pushing against it. Sorry. Because it's a given. And life shows us that on a regular basis. So the question becomes, what do we do internally to embrace that this is going to be a part of our life? And it's going to look like, as soon as we get certain things in place, what happens? Everything changes. As soon as everything gets set up at work or in the relationship or maybe even in your business, everything changes. I know, you're like, why do you have on glasses? I guess I don't need them. Sometimes the light from the world is too much on my eyes. But anyway, so we make it hard for ourselves because for some reason we have a tendency to think that once we arrive at a destination, or once we've completed something in particular, that then it's going to stay that way. And we forget that there's nothing that stays that way. Even though I'm out here, you know where I am, there's a tendency to look at the trees and the landscape and say, oh, okay, well, that looks the same as it was the last time I was here. But you can trust and believe that it's constantly changing. It's constantly moving. I don't like that tag. It's constantly dropping leaves. It's constantly unfolding. So when we can anchor ourselves in that knowing, this thought of, okay, I'm gonna get everything in place and then it's gonna sit. No, you get everything in place and then it's gonna shift. So what can you do to accept that nothing is going to stay the way you think it's going to stay for too long? Nothing's gonna stay. It's gonna shift, and it is shifting the moment you do it. From the very moment that you do it. Morning. From the very moment that you do it. It's shifting and changing. So it's our thinking. How do you change your thinking that keeps telling you, okay, I got to this place, I've arrived at this destination, and great, everything's going to stay the same. See, we set ourselves up because that's what we say to ourselves, as opposed to saying, you know what? Life is constantly moving. Life is constantly evolving. Life is constantly shifting. That's the weight of the world. The planet is constantly in orbit. Now, it may be so slow that we don't get it. Doesn't mean it's not happening. Hey, how are you, Pepper? Happy whatever to you. Happy Monday. So change isn't the issue. It's our interpretation and what we say to ourselves about change. That ends up being the issue more than anything else. So if we can say something different to ourselves as opposed to thinking, okay, I arrived here and everything's going to stay the same, and really accept that I arrived here and I'm going to be here at this destination for however long I'm going to be here, and then it's going to change into something else. Constantly shifting. The earth is shifting. The ground is shifting. Flowers are shifting. And see, we see it just like the seasons. You know, the trees are getting bare now. We have a few colors. I had the pleasure some years ago of being in DC, I think, for the cherry blossom. Oh my God, that was the most magnificent thing I'd ever seen. All these blossoms just flying and floating off the trees. But see, we look at what's happening out here and we're like, oh, look at the flowers, so pretty. Oh, look at this. And then we think it's going to stay that way. But we know it's going to go through its cycle. And we know part of that cycle means it's going to die. Whoa, all the dogs are stopping traffic. Come on across the street, dogs. But we don't seem to recognize that in our own lives. We don't seem to say that to ourselves so we can be the ones that nurture our own concern, our own worry. Okay, doggy, y'all go that way. Our own anxiety that we create our anxiety. And we create it because we want to tell ourselves, oh, well, this isn't going to change. Or no, everything's changing. You want to tell yourself that everything is changing. And that even though you may get the kids set up, you may get the classroom set up at home, you may get the computer set up, you may get a few gifts, you may get everything the way you want it. But as soon as you do, you need to say to yourself, okay, let's see how this is going to shift. Part of what keeps us struggling with the change is our fear. We think we can't handle it. We think we won't be prepared. We look for safety in things staying the same, even though it bores the heck out of us, even though we get so frustrated. What is he yelling about? I jumped out the way. I thought a car was coming. Even though we get bored with it, we want to complain about it. We can't have it both ways. You want everything to stay the same, but you get bored, or you don't want things to change because you're afraid. So the world is going to do what it does. Separate from all the politics and all of that, that's just added to it. The issue is how we're going to respond to it. So one of the first things is simply make peace with the fact that change is a part of life. And the wonderful thing about seasons is they remind us of that. It's constantly changing, constantly moving. Now, what do you anchor yourself in? That's the next piece. What do you anchor yourself in that's bigger than you and bigger than your experiences? What does that look like for you? What does that look like? Because see, that's where you find your support. I have on 2 masks? Wow, I was really doing good. I got 2 masks on. So when you can anchor yourself in something bigger than your experiences, in something bigger than what seems to be unfolding in your life, then when things shift and change, it's like, okay, this is just a normal process. Okay, let me stop. This is just a normal process. Like these leaves down here, aren't they beautiful? Falling off the trees. Now they won't be here 4 months from now. They won't be here. And see, they'll fall off the tree easily. They'll fall off gracefully. They won't resist and say, oh no, I'm afraid I'm gonna crash when I hit the ground. They won't do any of that. I watched one leaf fall one day. It was the most miraculous thing I could have seen. And I thought, wow, it is floating down. Little by little by little, it just floated down, floated down, floated down. And then it just landed. And I thought, wow. Now, it wasn't concerned about where it was going to land. It wasn't concerned if it was safe. It wasn't concerned what was going to happen when it landed. It just landed. And so that's what we're called to as well. In the midst of, we've given it this word change, but it's really transformation. You know, the seasons changing and the trees changing and the soil changing and the land changing. It's just life. We just have gotten so uncomfortable with being able to trust that we're anchored in something bigger than what seems to be happening on a daily basis. Because when you're anchored in something bigger, then you can just kind of stand. Like one of the ways I taught myself to meditate, you can just kind of stand here and simply know that things are going to go like this constantly. This is why I taught myself to meditate. They're constantly going. But if you keep your focus on one center place, they will just pass you by. Just keep going. What happens oftentimes, though, is though it's here, then what we do is we start going with it. And we go down that rabbit hole, and we just keep going down the rabbit hole. But when you're anchored in something bigger than yourself, things can shift and change, but you stay anchored on that one piece that you're connected to. So now for many, that's a variety of things. And unfortunately, oh great. Unfortunately, a lot of those things are outside of us. For many right now, it's the church. You can't get to church, so you're upset because the churches have closed. But that power and presence that you're bowing to, that you're praying to, that you're talking to, that you're sitting with, that presence doesn't change. It doesn't change. I think it's amazing that the churches are closed. How do you now worship that presence without having to go to church and sit with other people? Because it's still there. So when we can anchor ourselves in what is unchanging and unwavering, as the world does what it does, we can find some peace and some solace. So what do you anchor yourself in that's bigger than yourself? What do you turn to that's bigger than your daily experiences? Certainly bigger than the news. So that's what I want you to look at as well. Then I also want you to take some time and look at how do you really feel and what do you say to yourself about things changing? What do you say? We have no problems looking at the flowers becoming beautiful and, the different colors for orange and the burnt oranges and everything that pop up for the winter time. It's great for the fall leaves. We think all that's wonderful until it happens in our life. So what are you anchored in that's bigger than yourself? And then how do you nurture that? If it's God, if it's Yahweh, if it's Krishna, if it's prayer, if it's meditation, if it's being in nature, walking in nature, if it's sitting with your elders, ancestors, goons, what is it that you anchor yourself in that's unchanging? Because this is going to always change. This changes so we can grow. This out here constantly changes for us to grow. But when we nurture what's inside of us, that will remain constant no matter what happens out here. So we knew the lockdown was coming. I am 100% sure, and I'm sure you are as well, that these next months are the most critical months in this whole process. I think it's great that we're locked down. If we stay still, that'll help for all the people who are traveling. And maybe it'll balance it out. If we stay still, stay conscious, and stay aware, that will balance out all the people who are going to continue to travel. If we wear our mask, which most of the time I don't do out here, but I see more and more we've got them on today, then that has an impact on those around us. Sorry, I'm trying to see where I'm supposed to go. So, hi Yolanda, how are you? So, part of the shifting is the ego part of us, that part of us that's edging God out. That's what ego stands for. It wants to get to something and hold on to it. And it wants to get there, hold on to it, say, okay, ooh, I got here. Okay, I'm safe. I don't have to move. I can just stay here. Everything's going to be fine. And as soon as you say that, what happens? Something comes to knock you off your center. What I need for you to get clear about is how do you get back to center? What is it for you? For me, it's nature. All I have to do is walk outside, walk on the ground barefoot, and anchor myself down below. So what do you do to get yourself back to center? Because this is going to keep changing. So what do you do? Is it meditation? Is it prayer? Is it dance? Is it writing? Is it sitting in silence? Is it chanting? Is it dancing like the dervish dance? What do you do? See, nothing stops you from creating what you need to keep yourself centered. That's on us. It's not the world's job to keep us centered. It's our job to keep ourselves centered and anchored to something bigger than what we seem to be experiencing in our lives. So all those lists that I just said, if it's dancing, if it's chanting, if it's meditating, if it's dervish dancing, and whatever those are the tools that you want to cultivate That's what this time is about. For us to cultivate the tools that are going to sustain us through difficult times. Car, please don't back into me. Because that's what it's about. We can pretty much sustain ourselves when everything's going great. Pretty much. But it's when we're going through these difficult times that all of a sudden, every practice we knew, everything that we used to know, all of a sudden falls to the wayside and we panic and like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You're going to sit your butt down and meditate. You're going to sit yourself down in prayer and be quiet after you say your prayer. Stop asking God for the same thing over and over. You're going to sit down in contemplation. How do I need to show up differently in my life? Contemplation. You ask the question and you listen for an answer. You're going to sit in silence. You're going to walk in nature. Some of you are going to read your Bible. Some are going to read the Quran. Whatever your practice is, you're the one that's responsible to make sure that you cultivate that and then nurture yourself with that. That's what this is all about. How well do we take care of ourselves in the midst of the storms? You know, I'm always telling you, stop looking at TV. I actually came home last night to look at TV to see what the lockdowns were and heard everything else but that. So I turned it off again. I'll just drive through Pasadena and I'll know what our lockdowns are. But you get to cultivate that during this time, because if you can cultivate it during this time, you'll have it with you for the rest of your life. So cultivate that. Look at how you define change. Is it something that's scary to you? Is it something that you are not prepared for because of different choices you've made? What is it about it that knocks you off your center? Because that's probably the biggest piece with all the shifts and changes, is it knocks you off your center. And how do you get yourself back to center? Now, all the different things I've mentioned are ways to get back to center. Part of my walking out here is a way to get back to center. I do my early morning meditations, starts me off in center. My son will tell you I talk to the trees and the plants, keeps me centered and connected. What do you do to keep yourself centered and connected? We've got some interesting times between now and January 1st. We've finally reached that peak, I believe. With not a downturn yet, but we reached the peak. This month will determine what happens next. And we all have a part to play in that. We all have choices that we can make in that. We can decide going forward if we can cultivate our own sense of peace and our own sense of comfort and release the worry and the fear, then we can move toward something else for our whole world. Because it's not just the United States, it's global at this point. But because most of us have not cultivated an appetite for change, most of us have cultivated an appetite to get to one place and stay there and not have to move anymore, because we feel like it's too hard to keep making all these changes. But that's what life is about. So hopefully, if you're traveling, you've made a conscious decision to do that. If you're home, then you'll make a conscious decision about what that would look like for you. It's interesting to watch our behavior. I hear Christmas trees are on the rise. Everybody's buying a Christmas tree, which is a good thing. I like the way they smell, the fragrance of it, to have in the house. I'm not doing all the decorations. I'm just going to turn on my lights on the house. I just want all lights. So I just want you to know you have more power and more control than you think. And that there's a tendency to give that away and say, I don't know and I don't know. But let me tell you, you do know. You've been empowered. You know more than you may give yourself credit for. Now it's just a matter of you living that, trusting that, and walking in life from that knowingness. Not from the lack of, or I don't have it, or I can't do it. But to know that you do have it. It's right there within you. That as you're willing to sit in that stillness, as you're willing to recognize simply change is a part of life. I want to say, put a piece of paper up in your house that says change is a part of life. And then cultivate your ability to navigate it. To navigate it. Okay, so the bars are closing. That makes sense. I don't know why they were open. The clubs are closing. I don't know why they were open. I guess the gyms were closing. I thought they closed them a long time ago. The restaurants, I find it interesting that anyone would go inside of a restaurant to eat. There's not enough air circulating through there. See, I'm clear that this air out here in the universe, this air is not contaminated. So long as I've got air moving around me, I'm trusting God's air. When I go into a building, though, with doors and it's closed, now I'm dealing with circulated air that everybody's breathing. So, okay, we closed the restaurants. That makes sense. I'm hurt about the outdoor dining because we could only do outdoor dining probably another 2 weeks before it'd be too cold. In the meantime, we could help a couple of businesses, but it's okay. We'll order some food here and there to try and help them stay afloat. So you want to look at how you feel about change, when change comes to you, what it is that you think, because it's your thinking about it, and then how do you act in response to it. I can't even say if you have to see family members and you feel like you have to, then I guess you'll have to. Be mindful, be aware, but if you can be safe and stay put, and do Zoom, and do Google Hangouts, and all the other things that we have the technology to do, then this may be the year to do that. There's always a push and pull around the holidays. Do we go to mom's house? Do we go to dad's house? Do we go to this person's house and that person's house? Well, for this year, the answer's already been given to you. You don't go to anybody's house. It's the 1 year you get a pass where you don't have to be fussing with, well, we got to make 3 different stops and we have to do this, this, and this. It's the 1 day you get to take a pass. You also want to deal with that part of you that gets irritated. And it's like, well, you can't tell me what to do. I'm going to go see my family. I'm going to go do whatever. The I is the issue right now. It really is about we. And as Americans, it would seem that we aren't really big on the we. We're more connected to the I. I want to do this. I want to do that. You know, the kids are partying. I want to party. I mean, how much music and dancing can you do? So this whole process, and the reason why the change keeps coming, is because our focus is on I. When what we have to focus on now, is we. We need to do this. We need to consider this. We need to think about each other. We need to share our food. We need to share our resources. We need to share our kindnesses. We need to share our comments. We need to share our compassion. We need to share our understanding. We need to share our anxiety. We need to share our feelings. We need to share our truth. And we need to be open to listening to those truths of others, whether we agree with them or not. I don't have to agree with people who still want Trump or who still think Trump should be the election. I just listen to them. I'm like, okay, well, that's what you think. Then that's where you're going to put your energy. There's a whole bunch of billion other people that's not going in that direction, but I can't get mad at you if that's what you feel. The only thing that does come up for them is ultimately, you know, it really does have to be we. As you continue to pull people in different directions, we're delaying progress that could be happening for us. And it's not like we haven't been here before. So the we, you know, that W is what the next few weeks, 3 weeks are about. How do we recognize a we? How do we truly put on our mask and wear them for we? Not for me, for we. Part of why I exercise so early in the morning, like at 6:30 or 7, is because usually nobody's up and I can get away without my mask because nobody's out in the universe with me but me. But when I am out around people, I wear a doggone mask. Not that big a deal. It may help somebody along the way. I don't know. I don't know the powerful impact that my wearing a mask might have on somebody else. One thing I do know is it won't be a negative impact. And they're just individual choices we all have to make. Individually, not what someone else is saying, not what the media is saying, not what friends who are complaining or rebelling, but what it is that we actually think, feel, and believe within our hearts. Whoever that power and presence is that you turn to, you know, bow to, lean on, or feel like it's a part of the energy that creates your body, then how do you honor that presence, if that's God? How do you honor that presence and wear the mask to honor God in another person? You know, how do you honor that to truly keep the 6 feet of distance because you truly are concerned about someone else's well-being? And that's a big, tall order for the United States, because if we are an individualist country, I don't know what is. I, me, and mine. I, me, and mine. So we're changing the mindset to we. We're changing the mindset to us. We're changing the mindset to we are in this together, and it is going to affect us together in different ways. So change is here this Monday morning. I welcome it. I understand it the best I can, you know. The vaccine, a whole nother story coming there. And I have a friend say, well, we took the chicken pox. I'm like, well, I was a kid. I couldn't say yes or no to that. My mom said, get a chicken pox, so you got a chicken pox shot. This is different though. So if I'm still testing negative and I don't have any symptoms, you'd have to talk to me about the vaccine, but that's another talk show. For now, we're just accepting the fact that we are dealing and living in times of change. And here's the thing, we always have. We've always have. The capitalist machine made us think that we had some comfort. The capitalist machine made us think if we got up and went to work, did everything and came home, and got up and went to work, came home, that everything was going to be nice and smooth. No, we are dealing with real life, and change is real life. As the seasons change, as the leaves fall off these trees, as they go for, a few of ours, go from green to that pretty auburn color over there, change is happening. And we don't mind that too much. We think, oh, that's pretty. Although some people do complain about it. We don't mind that because it's happening out there. Out there. Where we struggle is when the change is happening out there that impacts us. And know that it's impacting us because it's time for us to change. It's time for us to recognize whether we see it in anybody else. The truth is we're all connected. We're all one. The secret was the fact that to this day, God makes sure we all have red blood. That if we could get past the outer appearance of us, this outer appearance of colors, that we would see what unites us and connects us to the oneness of all that there is on the planet. And the oneness that we are is the simple fact that we all bleed red blood. We keep missing the little simple teachings that we get along the way. Now that doesn't change. Everything out here though does change, constantly evolving, constantly changing, just like nature out here, constantly changing and constantly evolving. And on some level, our energy, our cells, our molecules, our protons, neutrons are all shifting and changing too, based on how we hold our consciousness. If it's a consciousness of we, if it's a consciousness of me. Did I get an M in there? So it depends on how you want to change the alphabet around. If it's going to be me, or if it's going to be we. And unfortunately in America, it's become a lot of me. And now it's time. The change is that it's time for us to be we. So have a great Monday. Look at where you're struggling with change. Look at that internal thinking that you have about it. Look at your feelings about it. If it's frustration, if it's disappointment, if it's that you weren't prepared. Look at those things and then answer those questions for yourself. If change bothers you because you don't feel prepared, well, how can you get more prepared? Well, let me tell you this secret. There's nothing out here in this world that you can do to get prepared for it. How we get prepared for change is on the inside. It's on the inside. Because what has to change is one, how we see ourselves, which is separate and apart from others. And then two, how we look at others. Again, we think we're separate and apart from them, which is also the biggest lie, the biggest mindset shift that we would need to make. I am connected to Rick, I'm connected to Angel, I'm connected to Lemuel, I'm connected to, hey, Eric Johnson, I'm connected to Pepper, I'm connected to all of you. Because there's one power and one presence that's breathing my breath, your breath, and all our breaths, all at one time. And that doesn't change. So when we can anchor ourselves in those kind of principles and teachings, live from that, and take these walks in that, then we can see how together we can come together to make some concessions for others. You know, it's a concession. You may think, well, I don't see why I have to wear my mask. I'm over here by myself. I'm not bothering anybody. Okay, that's fine. I'm on my trail over there, not bothering anybody. But when I go over on that side, I'm over where the people are. I need to wear my mask. It's a conscious choice that we make. If we recognize God in every single person that you see, then why wouldn't you be willing to make that concession? Why wouldn't you be willing? It's like this outer world takes over and dictates the inner world that's vast and beautiful and a oneness. So we get caught up on the way somebody looks, and then we decide, oh, I don't care about them. And here's the funny thing. You may think, oh, I'm not connected to them. I don't have to worry about them, which is nowhere near the truth. Of course you're connected to them. We are connected to every single person and thing on this planet because we were all created out of that one source, that one piece of clay, that one piece of divine design energy, that one brought out, so far it's 7 billion on the planet. That's just the people. That doesn't say anything about all these trees and all the plants and all the flowers and all the bugs and insects and all of that. So we knew it was coming. I trust you can be okay with it. I am. I'm hoping that we can go to school in January, particularly if us shutting down now allows some of the students to go to school in January. I believe they need that. Not that they want it. They need that interaction. That's just the way they've been raised. And we all get to do our part. We all get to do our part. And we all have to make conscious individual decisions about what we're going to do. There's no decision patrol that's going to come knock on your door and say, what'd you decide? Are you going to think about others or only think about yourself? No, that's probably a whisper that God is whispering inside to each and every one of us in our hearts. Are you just going to think about yourself or will you think about others? How much is this an inconvenience to you such that you only want to think about yourself and not think about others? And that's probably the biggest lesson for us to get out of this whole process. So, Monday mindset. Feeling good today. Got some rest. Slowed down. Accepted just the way things are. Did my prayers and meditation over the weekend. And, get up early in the morning. I'd stopped for some months, but now I'm back at it. Morning meditations, like 6 o'clock in the morning. Universe just wakes me up. It's a great time to get centered, to send love and prayer and energy out to everyone, because I'm connected to everyone and every one of you. So take good care. See you on Wednesday. If you're concerned, I guess you can go get tests. I haven't gotten a test yet. I know I'm sniffing, but I'm cold one and I have allergies, so it's nothing new. Take my temperature every day. So you do the same. But more importantly than our actions is going to be our thoughts, because our thoughts ultimately what determines our actions. So get clear on your thoughts. Change is waking us up. Change is saying you're alive. Change is saying you have power. Change is saying you get to make a choice. And you may say, well, those choices are limited. Either wear a mask or not wear a mask. Still a choice. It's still a choice. Nobody said you're going to get 5 or 6 choices. Sometimes you just get one choice and you get another choice, and that's all you get. So have a good day. Take care of yourself. You can stay in. Stay in. I still need to find out when all this stuff starts. I think the lockdown started today or when. I liked Biden's idea of asking people to wear their masks for 100 days. I'm like, okay, when's the countdown? Can we start the countdown so we can get to 0 and get through the process? It was tangible. And since I mark everything on my calendars, I thought, oh, that's great. But he ain't in office yet. Sorry, that wasn't grammatically correct. He is not in office yet. And so while he has that idea, it can't be implemented. So in the meantime, we have to make the best choices we can. That confusion they have going on up there in D.C., you can sit and watch it if you want to. I'm going to tell you not to. Stay in your own life. Stay in your own lane. Yeah, some of that may affect us, but ultimately, once it's settled, that's when we're going to really feel the effect of whatever it is. Because we won't even know half of what's been going on up there until everything has settled. So in the meantime, stay focused on you. Have a great day. Take good care of yourself and your family. Take good care of your heart. Take good care of your health. It's still a heart and a health crisis. And for many now, it's also becoming a financial crisis. You can find me at www.JenenneMacklin.com. Or you can always leave me messages here. #replay. Let me know you came back on, you listened, what state you're in, and how you're handling change. Take good care. Bye for now. Oh, somebody said good morning. Good morning. Hi, Romy.